This is the science behind why eating 3 meals a day is enough to build muscle, and why the fitness industry has been overcomplicating it for decades. Bodybuilders and fitness influencers have pushed the 6 meals a day idea for years, telling you that your body can only absorb 30 grams of protein per meal, and that you need to eat every 2 to 3 hours to keep your muscles fed. A landmark study from December 2023 flipped all of that on its head, and the research now tells a very different story. What I'm going to break down today is exactly how to optimize your 3 meals for muscle gain, backed by the most current research from scientists like Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, Dr. Stuart Phillips, and Dr. Lane Norton. We'll cover how much protein you actually need per meal, why the anabolic window is way wider than you've been told, and the specific meal structures that will help you pack on muscle without living in your kitchen. If you're an intermediate lifter looking to bulk efficiently, this one is for you. If you've been trying to bulk for months and your physique still hasn't changed, this is for you. Most people trying to gain muscle are not lacking effort, they're lacking structure. You can work out 5 days a week, but if your calories, macros, and meals aren't dialed in, you will not grow, period. That's exactly why I built my bulking blueprint, the step-by-step plan that shows you exactly what to eat, how much to eat, how to train, and how to bulk without getting fat. And listen, if my free videos already help you, imagine what happens when you follow the full system I actually use in real life. Stop guessing and start growing. Click the link in the description right now to unlock the bulking blueprint. Your dream physique starts the moment you take action, and that moment is right now. A myth that refuses to die is the idea that your body can only use 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal, and it's time to put it to rest for good. This claim has floated around gyms and fitness forums for decades, and on the surface, it sounds scientific enough to believe. When you dig into what researchers actually say, a very different picture emerges. Dr. Brad Schoenfeld and Dr. Alan Aragon addressed this directly in their 2018 paper in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition, and their conclusion was clear. The amount of protein that can be absorbed by your gut is, and I quote, virtually unlimited. Your body can absorb virtually unlimited protein. The question isn't absorption at all, but utilization, meaning how much of that protein actually gets used to build muscle. And that's where it gets interesting. December 2023 brought a research paper led by Jorn Tromelin, published in Cell Reports Medicine, that many consider a landmark study in the field. Participants consumed either 25 grams or 100 grams of protein after a workout, and the research team tracked what happened over 12 hours using a comprehensive quadruple isotope tracer methodology. The 100-gram dose produced approximately 30% higher muscle protein synthesis over the measurement period compared to the 25-gram dose. And here's what really matters. Less than 15% of the protein from that massive dose was oxidized, meaning burned for energy rather than used for building. The researchers concluded that the magnitude and duration of the anabolic response to protein ingestion is not restricted, which means your body doesn't just dump excess protein, but uses it over a longer time period. Jeff Nippard put it well on his blog when he wrote about the huge intermittent fasting community, who seem to be getting plenty jacked from just eating 1 or 2 meals per day, with upwards of 50 to 100 grams of protein per meal. And given their muscularity and gains, it's highly unlikely that most of that protein is going to waste. If you've been stressing about hitting exactly 30 grams per meal 6 times a day, that stress is unnecessary. 3 larger protein doses work just fine, and the science backs this up completely. Now that we've cleared up the absorption myth, muscle protein synthesis, or MPS, deserves your full attention, because this is what actually drives muscle growth. Muscle protein synthesis is exactly what it sounds like. The process of building new muscle protein, representing the building side of muscle protein turnover. 2 things primarily stimulate MPS, and those are protein ingestion, specifically the amino acid leucine, and muscle contraction through resistance exercise. Combining resistance training with protein feeding creates a synergistic effect, and the result is a positive net protein balance, which over time means bigger muscles. A phenomenon researchers call muscle full is worth understanding here. Your muscles are only receptive to the anabolic effects of protein for a limited window after eating. Research by Atherton and colleagues published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2010 showed that MPS peaks at about 60 to 90 minutes after a protein-rich meal, then returns to baseline by approximately 180 minutes, which is 3 hours, even if your blood amino acid levels remain elevated. Your muscles essentially turn off their building response after about 3 hours, regardless of whether there's still protein floating around in your bloodstream. The concept of the refractory period comes into play here. Research by Mitchell and colleagues in 2017, published in Clinical Science, demonstrated something fascinating when they gave participants a protein meal and then tried to give them a 3-gram leucine top-up 90 minutes later to extend the MPS response. The attempt failed completely because the muscle remained refractory and wouldn't respond to more amino acids. 4 to 6 hours is the approximate duration of this refractory period before your muscle can be restimulated, and this is actually great news for 3-meal eaters. Spacing your meals about 4 to 6 hours apart allows MPS to reset between each feeding, which means each meal triggers its own anabolic response, and you're not wasting that response by eating too frequently. Dr. Lane Norton summarized this perfectly when he wrote that he suggests consuming 4 to 6 larger protein doses per day instead of 6 to 8 meals, and waiting 4 to 5 hours between meals rather than 2 to 3 hours. 3 meals, spaced properly, fits this framework exactly. Leucine is what actually triggers that muscle protein synthesis response in the first place, and understanding it changes how you think about protein. This branch-chain amino acid acts as the primary trigger for MPS, almost like a key that turns on the muscle-building machinery. The catch is that you need enough of it to reach what researchers call the leucine threshold. For young adults under 65, this threshold sits at about 2 to 2.5 grams of leucine per meal, while older adults need around 3 to 4 grams because aging muscles become less sensitive to the anabolic signal. What does this translate to in terms of actual food? Roughly 20 to 25 grams of high-quality protein for younger lifters gets the job done. Different protein sources contain different amounts of leucine, and this matters when you're planning meals. Whey protein runs about 11% leucine, so roughly 27 grams of whey will hit your threshold. Beef contains around 8% leucine, which means you'd need about 35 to 40 grams of beef. Plant proteins typically contain 6 to 8% leucine, and that's why plant-based lifters often need higher protein intakes to get the same anabolic response. Dr. Lane Norton's research puts it simply when he states that 3 grams, approximately 0.05 grams per kilogram of body weight of leucine is required to maximize this response. When you're building your 3 meals, you're not just thinking about total protein, but whether each meal contains enough leucine to flip that anabolic switch. Hitting 30 to 50 grams of protein per meal from whole food sources will easily get you there for most people. The numbers everyone wants to know come down to how much total protein you need per day, and how you should divide it across 3 meals. A meta-analysis by Morton and colleagues, published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine in 2018, provides the definitive answer after analyzing 49 studies with 1,863 participants. Protein supplementation beyond 1.62 grams per kilogram per day showed diminishing returns, with the 95% confidence interval extending up to 2.2 grams per kilogram. Dr. Stuart Phillips, one of the most respected protein researchers in the world, put it in practical terms on the Eat Move Think podcast when he explained that the number they push around is about twice the RDA, so if you want it in grams per kilo, it's about 1.6 grams per kilo per day, and in grams per pound, it's probably closer to about 0.6 to 0.7 grams per pound. A 180-pound person would need roughly 108 to 126 grams of protein per day, and divided across 3 meals, that works out to 36 to 42 grams per meal. Schoenfeld and Aragon's 2018 research suggests aiming a bit higher per meal for maximum benefit, specifically 8.4 to 0.55 grams per kilogram of body weight per meal. For an 80-kilogram person, that's about 176 pounds, which translates to 32 to 44 grams per meal. Breaking this down by body weight makes it clearer. Someone weighing 154 pounds or 70 kilograms has a daily target of 112 to 154 grams, meaning 37 to 51 grams per meal. At 176 pounds or 80 kilograms, the daily range becomes 128 to 176 grams, which is 43 to 59 grams per meal. And at 198 pounds or 90 kilograms, daily needs run from 144 to 198 grams, requiring 48 to 66 grams per meal. These are substantial meals with substantial protein, and that's exactly the point, because with 3 meals, each one needs to do heavy lifting. The most persistent myth in fitness nutrition might be the idea that you need to consume protein within 30 to 60 minutes after your workout, or you'll miss the anabolic window. And Dr. Brad Schoenfeld addressed this directly on the Found My Fitness podcast with Dr. Rhonda Patrick. His exact words were that it's really a barn door, and they've done a ton of research on this, and certainly there is somewhat of a window, and even in the paper they published, which people take as saying there's no anabolic window, that's not what the research showed, but it showed that it's really minor, and the much more important thing is getting your total daily protein intake. A barn door is what he called it, not a tiny window that slams shut after 30 minutes. Aragon and Schoenfeld's 2013 research in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition showed that the anabolic effects of a mixed meal can last up to 6 hours, and after exercise, your muscles remain in an enhanced anabolic state for 24 to 48 hours. The practical meaning is clear. Eating a protein-rich meal within 3 to 4 hours before your workout means you don't need to rush to get a post-workout shake because your muscles are still benefiting from that pre-workout meal. Research from Lack and colleagues, published in Frontiers in Nutrition in May 2024, confirmed this by comparing immediate protein intake around workouts versus a 3-hour delay in 40 resistance-trained males over 8 weeks. No significant differences emerged, and the researchers concluded that total daily protein intake appears to be the primary factor in facilitating muscle growth. The only time the post-workout window becomes more relevant is if you're training completely fasted, and in that case, getting protein within an hour or two after training makes more sense because you don't have a recent meal providing amino acids. For everyone else, eating 3 meals a day with proper protein, stop stressing about post-workout timing and just eat your next meal when it fits your schedule. Meal timing isn't meaningless, and while total daily protein is the biggest factor, solid evidence shows that distribution across meals provides an additional benefit. Mamro and colleagues published a key study in the Journal of Nutrition in 2014, and their finding was striking. 24-hour muscle protein synthesis jumped approximately 25% when protein was evenly distributed across 3 meals compared to being skewed toward the evening meal. And here's the thing. Most people eat the majority of their protein at dinner, starting with a carb-heavy breakfast containing minimal protein, eating a light lunch, and then loading up on steak or chicken at dinner. The research shows this approach is backwards if your goal is muscle growth. Artea and colleagues ran another study in 2013, published in the Journal of Physiology, comparing different protein patterns over 12 hours after exercise. They tested 8 doses of 10 grams every 1.5 hours, 4 doses of 20 grams every 3 hours, and 2 doses of 40 grams every 6 hours. The 4 doses of 20 grams came out superior, but the 2 doses of 40 grams still worked, just not quite as optimally. Yasuda and colleagues took this further in a 2020 study published in the Journal of Nutrition, running a 12-week randomized controlled trial comparing high breakfast protein intake at dorm point 0.33 grams per kilogram versus low breakfast protein at dorm point 112 grams per kilogram. Greater muscle hypertrophy appeared in the high breakfast protein group. Direct evidence now shows that 3 meals with even protein distribution, especially with adequate breakfast protein, promotes muscle growth. Jeff Nippard's summary captures it well. By far, the most important factor in protein utilization towards muscle growth is your total daily protein intake. And if you're looking to optimize further, you can pay attention to how you distribute your protein throughout the day, with 3 to 5 meals most likely being the anabolic sweet spot. And these 2 factors alone will yield more than 90% of your potential results. Front-loading your day with protein, rather than backloading it to dinner, will give you a measurable advantage, even if obsessing over timing isn't necessary. Calories need to be addressed before we get into practical meal structures, because you can nail your protein intake perfectly and still struggle to build muscle if your energy balance isn't right. Building muscle optimally requires a caloric surplus, meaning eating more than you burn. But the question is how much more? Research from Sports Medicine Open in 2023 found something interesting when comparing a 5% caloric surplus to a 15% surplus. Similar muscle gains appeared in both groups, but the difference showed up in body composition. The higher surplus resulted in significantly more fat gain without appreciable extra muscle. Conservative recommendations from current research point to a 5 to 10% surplus above your maintenance calories, which works out to roughly 250 to 500 extra calories per day. Your target weight gain should run about 0.25 to 0.5% of your body weight per week, roughly half a pound to 1 pound for a 180-pound person. Dr. Mike Israetel from Renaissance Periodization puts it in terms of hierarchy when he explains that if we're trying to lose fat, or gain muscle, or enhance performance, calories or calorie intake are our #1 consideration. And if you want to gain muscle, a hypercaloric diet, where you eat more calories than you burn, comes first. Making sure you're eating enough total food is step 1. And making sure enough of that food is protein is step 2. 3 solid meals can absolutely accomplish both when you make each meal count. Getting practical means understanding how to actually structure breakfast, lunch, and dinner for maximum muscle gain. Breakfast needs to be a high-protein meal, not the typical carb-heavy affair most people eat, because you're breaking an overnight fast, and this is your first opportunity of the day to trigger muscle protein synthesis. 30 to 50 grams of protein is your target here. Massive undereating of protein at breakfast is common, and research shows that higher breakfast protein augments muscle hypertrophy, making this meal the one that sets the tone for the day. Lunch should maintain that even protein distribution with another 30 to 50 grams. Many people use this meal as a pre-workout meal if they train in the afternoon, and the anabolic effects of a mixed meal lasting up to 6 hours means a solid lunch can carry you through an afternoon training session. Dinner is where you complete your daily protein target, and this can run slightly higher if your workout was earlier in the day. Slower digesting protein sources work well here. Things rich in casein like cottage cheese or dairy, or whole food proteins like meat, which can provide overnight amino acid availability. Dr. Stuart Phillips put it simply when comparing meal approaches, saying that if you ate it in one big meal or you ate it in 3 meals, he doesn't think there would be a lot of difference, and the advantage would go to the 3 meals. How to time these 3 meals depends on when you train, and each training schedule has its own optimal approach. Morning trainers can start with a light pre-workout meal or small breakfast with about 20 grams of protein before hitting the gym. The post-workout breakfast or brunch becomes the big meal with 40 to 50 grams of protein. Lunch hits around 1 p.m. with 30 to 40 grams. And dinner at 7 p.m. brings another 30 to 40 grams. Afternoon trainers have a different rhythm. Breakfast at 7 a.m. carries 30 to 40 grams. Lunch around noon provides 30 to 40 grams while serving as the pre-workout meal. And then dinner at 6 or 7 p.m. after the workout becomes the post-workout meal with 40 to 50 grams of protein. Evening trainers space it differently. Breakfast at 7 a.m. with 30 to 40 grams, lunch at noon with 30 to 40 grams, an optional small pre-workout snack in the afternoon, or just relying on lunch, and then dinner at 8 or 9 p.m. after training with 40 to 50 grams. Dr. Schoenfeld's research shows that if you're hitting your daily protein requirements, whatever your eating window is, you're pretty good, and you're going to get the majority of your gains regardless. Concrete meal examples that hit the protein targets we've been discussing will make this actionable. For breakfast, a high-protein oatmeal works well with 100 grams of oats, 1 scoop of whey protein, a banana, and a tablespoon of peanut butter, which delivers about 39 grams of protein, 100 grams of carbs, 15 grams of fat, and 600 calories. Eggs and Toast offers another option with 4 whole eggs scrambled, 2 slices of whole wheat toast, and half an avocado, hitting 34 grams of protein, 30 grams of carbs, 35 grams of fat, and 550 calories. A Greek yogurt parfait with 1.5 cups of Greek yogurt, half a cup of granola, mixed berries, and 2 tablespoons of chia seeds gives you 40 grams of protein, 55 grams of carbs, 15 grams of fat, and 500 calories. Lunch options include the classic chicken, rice, and vegetables with 6 ounces of chicken breast, 1.5 cups of brown rice, 1 cup of broccoli, and a tablespoon of olive oil, totaling 55 grams of protein, 80 grams of carbs, 17 grams of fat, and 650 calories. A tuna quinoa bowl with 1 can of tuna in water, 1 cup of cooked quinoa, mixed greens, and half an avocado provides 50 grams of protein, 50 grams of carbs, 18 grams of fat, and 550 calories. Dinner could be salmon and sweet potato with 6 ounces of salmon fillet, 1 large sweet potato, 1 cup of roasted Brussels sprouts, and a tablespoon of olive oil, delivering 48 grams of protein, 55 grams of carbs, 26 grams of fat, and 650 calories. A sirloin steak plate with 6 ounces of lean sirloin, 1 cup of white rice, 1 cup of green beans, and a pat of butter brings 48 grams of protein, 55 grams of carbs, 20 grams of fat, and 600 calories. Each of these meals comfortably hits 35 to 55 grams of protein. That's the target you're aiming for. Not all protein is created equal, and protein sources and quality deserve attention when you're building your meals. Animal-based protein breaks down like this. A 3.5-ounce serving of chicken breast delivers 27 to 31 grams of protein, and turkey breast runs similar at 30 grams. Lean beef or sirloin at 3 ounces provides 22 grams, salmon at 3.5 ounces gives you 22 grams, and canned tuna at 3 ounces lands at 20 to 22 grams. One large whole egg contains 6 grams, 3/4 of a cup of Greek yogurt holds 14 to 20 grams, and 1 cup of cottage cheese packs a whopping 28 grams. 1 scoop of whey protein typically runs 24 to 30 grams. Plant-based sources offer different numbers. Firm tofu at 3 to 4 ounces contains 10 to 14 grams. Tempeh at 3.5 ounces delivers 19 grams. And 1 cup of edamame provides 17 grams. Cooked lentils at 1 cup give you 18 grams. Black beans at 1 cup contain 15 grams. And cooked quinoa at 1 cup holds 8 grams. Pea protein powder at 1 scoop runs around 24 grams. Plant-based lifters need to account for something specific. Only about 75 to 80% of plant protein is absorbed compared to 95% of animal protein, largely due to fiber content, which means aiming slightly higher on total intake makes sense. Protein quality scores tell their own story. Whey, casein, whole eggs, milk, and beef all score above 100 on the DWA scale. The digestible indispensable amino acid score, meaning they provide more than 100% of required essential amino acids per gram. Soy protein isolate scores 90 to 98, and pea protein scores 82. Research from 2024 by Pinkers and colleagues found 47% higher muscle protein synthesis with a beef meal compared to an equivalent vegan meal, suggesting protein quality matters more than some people think. The most common mistakes people make when trying to build muscle with 3 meals deserve attention before we wrap up. Backloading all your protein to dinner is the first mistake, and it's what most people do naturally. The Mammoth study found that even distribution, especially with adequate breakfast protein, gives you 25% more daily muscle protein synthesis, which means front-loading your protein to the morning rather than the evening makes a real difference. Still believing the 25 to 30 gram limit is the second mistake. After everything we've covered, this should be clear, but leaving protein on the table because you think more won't be used is unnecessary. The Tromelin study showed 100 grams in a single meal continued contributing to MPS for over 12 hours. Obsessing over the post-workout window comes in third. Eating within 3 to 4 hours before training means you don't need to rush to consume protein, which is why Dr. Schoenfeld calls it a barn door, not a window. The exception is training completely fasted, which makes post-workout nutrition more relevant. Dirty bulking with excessive surplus is the fourth mistake. Eating way more calories than you need, thinking more equals more muscle, backfires because beyond 5 to 10% surplus, those extra calories become fat, not muscle. Gaining 0.25 to 0.5% of your body weight per week is the target, not more. Not eating enough on rest days trips up a lot of people. Your muscles repair and grow on rest days too, which means maintaining your 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of protein daily, regardless of whether you trained that day. Neglecting healthy fats creates problems because fats are needed for testosterone and hormone production. At least 0.5 grams per kilogram of body weight is the minimum, and including healthy fats at every meal covers this. Relying solely on protein shakes rounds out the list. Shakes are convenient, but whole food sources provide additional nutrients, slower digestion with extended amino acid release, and greater satiety, so using shakes to supplement whole foods rather than replace them is the smarter approach. 3 meals a day is absolutely sufficient to build muscle, and this isn't permission to be lazy, but what the research actually shows. Dr. Eric Helms summarized the current evidence well when he stated that the current research suggests that to maximize protein synthesis, it's best to have 3 or more protein feedings spread out throughout the day. 3 or more, not 6, not 8. 3 works. What you need to do breaks down clearly. Hit your daily protein target of 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is roughly 0.7 to 1 gram per pound. Each meal should contain 30 to 55 grams of high-quality protein to reach the leucine threshold and independently trigger muscle protein synthesis. Distribute your protein relatively evenly across meals, with special attention to not skimping on breakfast. Space your meals approximately 4 to 6 hours apart to allow the refractory period to reset. Maintain a modest caloric surplus of 5 to 10% above maintenance. And stop stressing about meal timing perfection, because as Jeff Nippard puts it, Total daily protein and reasonable distribution will yield more than 90% of your potential results. The December 2023 Trumalin study validated what practical lifters have known for years. You don't need to eat every 2 hours. You don't need to carry Tupperware everywhere. And you don't need to set alarms for protein feedings. 3 solid meals with adequate protein, a slight caloric surplus, and consistent training, that's the formula. If you've been trying to bulk for months and your physique still hasn't changed, this is for you. Most people trying to gain muscle are not lacking effort. They're lacking structure. You can work out 5 days a week, but if your calories, macros, and meals aren't dialed in, you will not grow, period. That's exactly why I built my bulking blueprint. The step-by-step plan that shows you exactly what to eat, how much to eat, how to train, and how to bulk without getting fat. And listen, if my free videos already help you, imagine what happens when you follow the full system I actually use in real life. Stop guessing and start growing. Click the link in the description right now to unlock the bulking blueprint. Your dream physique starts the moment you take action, and that moment is right now. Now go build some muscle.